So it was probably around like 2015. And I was thinking about this because I was having to go back through some old Facebook stuff. Um, so I was going to do my own creator own book. I was coming off of working at Legendary,
Yeah. I
the movie
remember when you were
company.
doing that. Yeah.
So and I basically was like, I'm gonna do a creator own book. So I had a hard time getting Image to even acknowledge me, as odd as it is. And that was hard to get through Eric Stevenson. So without naming names, there was some big Image founding creators I had to go through just to get my book approved at Image. And so I go in with Extend, and Eric Stevenson kind of jerks me around a little bit. But I get in, I end up, at Image Expo. I have Todd McFarlane coming up to my booth at San Diego Comic Con to shake my hand. All of this stuff, which was one of my biggest career accomplishments to me, was just because I remember waiting in line for Todd to sign my Spawn action figure, which I have up somewhere, or I'd grab it. But so to him now come to me and shake my hand for going and doing a book of Image was like a really big life accomplishment for me.
Yeah.
So my book is coming out, and all of a sudden I have people attacking me because I'm writing a woman, because I'm a white male, because I have a character that is gay in the book, or hinted at being gay. And I'll bring that up in a minute, why I did that, because a lot of people misrepresent what I was doing there. And at first, Image was kind of like okay with it, but then it's like I basically found myself in comics when everybody was attacking, especially Image comics, about representation of creators, not just
Mhm.
characters, but creators needed to have representation. More women in comics, more. Why is this stage of creators all white and male? Like there was literally a Bleeding Cool thing like that. And then later Bleeding Cool would start doing these ratio charts. How many creators are white? How many creators are women at Marvel Comics and stuff? And it was super weird. Later on in the book, my my bad guy in the book happens to be bullied and maybe homosexual and confused, and he almost becomes a school shooter. Which today I look back at and I'm like, that kind of rings true in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
Still, I kind of pointed at that, didn't I? It's like, and that's when Image internally started to not like me because they saw what I was doing with that character in the book, and then they kind of peeled off or pushing the book because they're like, that's what are you saying here? And it's like, you know what I'm saying? Confused individuals may do violent things. That's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
So, anyways, I found myself arguing with identity politics on online and having
Mm.
to try to, and SJWs, like, and some of these I can't remember their name, but Ethan remembers them, and they were just these personalities that pop up behind the avatar. And I was basically in a Facebook group of all these DC artists and in writers in there too, like some people like Scott Snyder, Rob Liefeld would be in there, Dave Johnson, Coley Hamner, different people. And I would get kicked out of this group basically because people were bitching about Ethan. And they were talking like, oh, Ethan said this over there. DC shouldn't give him more work. I don't remember what Ethan had said. I think he said something to a fan, but basically Trump had won the election.
Mhm.
Okay, that's when all this kicked up. Now, I didn't ask to enter this group. Like, for people that remember Facebook days, like you could just look on your timeline, all of a sudden you're seeing shit in your feed because somebody added you to a group.
Yep.
People could just add you to a group. So I didn't even understand that. Now at the same time, I'm in a a Republican conservative group where Ethan's at. I'm in like two groups. On one side, they're bitching and trying to cancel Ethan. And I don't know, man. I guess I just didn't understand what was happening. You have to understand this was all in front of you. Hindsight, everything's clear.
Yeah.
But the comic industry really got uh, polarized by the 2015 2016 election. And I'm over here. publicly saying on Facebook to the world and having conversations. I remember this last night with Chris Cross that I never knew he was black, nor did I care. I'm saying this publicly. I was like, dude, I bought your book Slingers because I thought it was cool. I didn't care you were black. And I was like, nobody, I'm like, this whole creator and representation and character and the creators have to match the color. I'm like, I'm having full arguments with people just publicly. I'm like, so how does that work? If there's a woman on the page, I have to pass the page to a woman to draw the woman. If there's a black guy, I need a black friend to draw that black guy in the corner box over here. Like, I'm like, where does this begin and end? And Chris Cross kind of got at me about it. And was like, bro, I bought your shit and I never knew your color. I just up and said that to him. And and I didn't even understand like the landmine I was stepping on. And I'm getting kicked out of this group because they're trying to cancel Ethan. And I'm begging to get back in the group because I just think this is all super interesting. So I'm like, no, I promise I'll be good this time. And I think it was like somebody like Frank Terry had to get on the phone with me and talk to me for me to get back in the group. And he's laughing about me getting kicked out. I got kicked out of that group like 2 or 3 times because basically they were wanting to cancel Ethan from getting any work. And I'm like, guys, you do realize he's always going to get paid. And they're like, what do you mean? I remember Dave Johnson and Cap like, what do you mean, Shane? I'm like, because of royalties. They're not going to stop printing his book. What do you mean he's always going to get paid? And then I'm bounced out of there. And Coley Hamner's like, dude, you're rubbing people the wrong way. It's like, why? I mean, logically, why? You think they're going to quit printing this Green Lantern shit that's selling 1 million toys at DC Direct, that's selling fucking t-shirts, that we're getting checks for shit in video games, you idiot. Like, I had Red Lanterns I'm getting paid for in video games, so I know damn well Ethan's getting paid for characters in video games. I'm like, they're not, DC is not, for an SJW movement, going to quit producing any products based off these characters. They're not going to quit printing Jeff Johns books that he drew. I mean, and that infuriated. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And eventually something slipped out of that room about people wanting a picture of your boy Zach, and because they wanted to punch him at New York Comic Con. Now that had happened in that room, and I said, what the fuck are you guys doing trying to incite violence at a con? I said, and I actually made the joke, I said, you go over here and somebody wants to try to get your boy Zach to throw a punch. What if somebody falls into you get some guy dressed up as Galactus falling into some kid dressed up as Spider-Man? I even made a joke in there. I'm like, what are you guys doing? You're going to fuck cons up for everybody. And I again got kicked out for that, I think. So maybe that's my 3rd time. Months later, that screenshot slips out online, and I have I can't remember the creator because I looked it up the other day, and his name always slips my mind. And I think he was a letterer, but he started writing some Wolverine stuff. I want to say his name was Bryson or something, or I don't know. It doesn't matter. He's yelling at me, accusing me publicly on my Facebook timeline because I shared an article. I think it was a Bounding in Comics article, that I was a mole.
B. Claymore.
B. Claymore. He's yelling at me saying I'm a mole in this group, that I'm out here fucking that group up. And I'm like, no, I was kicked out on that one post, that screenshot. I wasn't in that fucking group for months. And they're like, okay, I guess you're right. I'm like, yeah, I will get off my fight. He's like, well, can you take your post down off of Facebook? I'm like, no, you guys shouldn't be trying to incite violence at a con. He's like, yeah, but you're helping Comicsgate out. And I'm like, and I would find myself, say, like that year at San Diego Comic Con, and I'd just be in like a, I don't know, where everybody's drinking at the bar, right? People are having drinks. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I'm talking to people I've known for years at cons, and they'd be like, well, you need to disavow Comicsgate. And everybody gets quiet. We went from level 8 conversation to level 11. And I'm like, you just announced that to the room, and everybody just kind of, I felt everybody looking, and I'm like, what the fuck? That was happening to me a lot in public, in Facebook groups like this. You need to disavow Comicsgate. It wasn't enough that you're not Comicsgate, you have to disavow them. And I was just like, you guys are fucking crazy. I'm like, a customer's a customer. was my
Right.
attitude at the time. Now, I I grew up like conservative Republican, like so like and I also kind of grew up like don't talk politics, don't talk religion, it's bad for business. And that's not the world we live in today, unfortunately. Everything's polarized. I got caught up in it's weird. I was telling Ethan that they were doing this like another. I'm like, Ethan, you're trying to cancel it. So in a way, I guess I was a mole in a comics group that I never asked to be invited to.
Right.
And I kept going to the group because there was this one thread that I remember liking, and it would just be people posting artwork, and I'm going to leave some names out, whatever was half drawn on their table, right? That they couldn't show publicly. And I remember just seeing cool artwork being generated by these artists that I was either working around or same company, different company, but I knew who they were. Some people talking about, oh, I'm going to go do this gig. I'm excited. Some people bitching about their editors, but it was a nice little group at one time, and then they dissolved the group because they got found out.
Hmm.
And it was
Wow.
a key players, and that's kind of how I ended up in the Comicsgate thing in a weird way. I remember Ethan saying, "Oh, Miller, Smiller," and I remember Ethan sending me a picture of from Blood Honey where it was like the I guess the apartment building that Salamandroid shoves his head through,
Mm-hmm.
showing me what it looks like and how he's doing crowdfunding. I remember Mitch running Red Rooster and stuff, and I just told Ethan my mom had gotten sick with cancer. She was terminal. I was like basically a there for a couple of about 3 years. I was like a caregiver, and I was getting divorced. I was like a lot of things were happening at once for me, and I just told Ethan I was like I have too much going on to get into crowdfunding. And it was weird at that time because I basically it went from all of that stuff to big life changes where I couldn't take an assignment.
Hmm.
Like I was like my mom's situation was touch and go. So to take a deadline was really hard for me, a stern
Hmm.
deadline.
Yeah.
And Dan was very respectful of that. And at the same time, DC Comics was double shipping everything with Rebirth,
Hmm.
right? Which
Hmm.
was even worse now for me to take some because Dan's like, we need to get you back on. I need you to be part of Rebirth starting at the beginning. And we're double shipping and we have to do it. And that's when I knew the market was in trouble, that DC Comics was having to do Rebirth. They were having to double ship. And I just told Dan, like, look, this is private information. Nobody knows this yet, but this is my mom's situation. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to take the assignment because I don't know what's happening 3 months from now. I mean, the doctors were
Hmm.
never like, she's got 3 years to live. They're like, 6 months, another
Hmm.
6 months, 6 months. And then eventually 6 months became 3 years, So and he was respectful of that. And he's like, don't worry about it. We'll get you on some covers and we'll do some one shots, which I did.
Hmm.
I did a New Gods one shot I wrote and drew. I did like a Commandi issue, and I did a Catwoman election night special, which I never ceased to get shit from people because I drew a Trump penguin, even though I drew a villainous Hillary Clinton. It didn't matter. Didn't matter. I
Yeah.
get shit for that. And that was another place I ended up being Comicsgate because I started fighting with some people, SJW Spider Man and stuff on Twitter.
Oh, I remember that guy.
Yeah, and he is like, "Well, you need to do more political comics." I'm like, "Well, did you read my last political comic?" He's like, "No, what is it?" And I'm like, "Here, the election night special." He's like, "Well, I didn't know it exists, but I'll read it now, and you should do more They were literally coming at me, "Why aren't you being a political mouthpiece for comics?" Which meant hate Comicsgate. It was like a
Right.
whole fucking thing, and I'm like, "The fuck is wrong with you people?" Like,
Hmm.
it was just it was weird. It was weird. The whole thing was weird, and it was I it. But anyways, back to Ethan. I was like, I can't do crowdfunding because my life's so fucking messed up. I wouldn't know what to tell people when the book's coming out. It's like
Hmm.
I got all this going on at home. My mom and the caregiver. I can't be doing crowdfunding. So I basically didn't go to crowdfunding for quite some time, even though I was watching the kind of Comicsgate forming, even though it was already a thing before.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. It was like I was just mixed into the events that have us where we are, you know.
Yeah.
So and I was really oddly enough just trying to get along with everybody. I wanted everybody to get paid. I wanted everybody to get better things in comics. I told Rob about equity at DC Comics. He didn't know. I told David Finch about it. He didn't know. They need to apply for these things so they get paid, and hopefully David did, because they did use that bunny chick in Peacemaker. So it's like I was just pro creator, and somehow I ended up just on this people's shit list.
Yeah. So you were like officially maybe not officially on the books blacklisted, but you were effectively blacklisted from DC?
No, Dan kind of kept me in the mix, but so this is when I realized I was canceled. Dan's like, you need to get over the thing with your mom. You got to live your life. And this had been going on for maybe 2 years. And he meant it in the best way possible. He's like, you got to get back on the ball. You can't, just let your life go by, And he's like, I want you to go on it was a Batman book. And he's like, I want you to take this Batman book, and we're going to do as many issues as you can get done. So don't give me the excuse, I don't know what's going on in your personal life, because if you can only do 2, you do 2. If you can do 8, you do 8. But just take it and run. And there were other people at DC Comics that were well aware of this book. Hank Canals was one of them. A really good guy. He came from Wildstorm. And they're like, well, the writer, which will go not named here, is busy with this other book that's a big book at DC Comics. And keep in mind, Dan's putting me on this, and I think he's co-publisher at this time with Jim Lee. And it's kind of muddy what Dan was, because Dan never took his foot out of the department he came from. So Dan was always Dan, even if his title changed. He was still kind of operating as editor-in-chief, even if it was Bob Harris there. Dan, everything still was very much Dan. So this Bat book, they're like, well, the writer's busy. Here's an inventory issue. And they were gauging me, and I had to ink myself. I had to get this issue done in a certain amount of time with notes. They wanted layouts. I'd give them my layouts. I'd follow the layouts. I'd do the changes, everything, made the deadline. I want to say I did the whole book, pencils and inks, and it's never printed to this day. And probably like 4.5 weeks, and a cover. And I'm like, okay, so where's the script for the next issue? And he's like, it's coming. And I'll name this guy. Rob Levin was the editor, who's now the editor of the Bat Group. The guy that kind of signed off on the Red Hood book that had to get pulled. He got fired in between this, by the way, or left the company. But anyways, back to where I'm at in this timeline. Rob's writes me an email when I'm looking for script about a month later. So I've had, I'm supposed to be on this book. We're losing a month on the deadline. They've signed me up for 8 issues of this Batman run, by the way. They have one done. That's an inventory for whenever we get behind a single issue that still hasn't printed. And I go, hey, anything about that script? And he writes me an email about his dog getting attacked the day before walking, and how he had to take it to the vet and everything. And I'm like, I write him back. I'm like, man, that really sucks. But any news on that script?
Yeah.
and a day goes by, no response. The second day, I'm thinking, okay, well, script's probably getting together, because it's somebody else's responsibility. And I get a phone call, and he's like, hey, Shane, this is Rob. I'm like, hey, what's going on, man? He's like, you got time to talk? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I just want you to know I've went through the entire DC offices, and me and you aren't seeing eye to eye. And I've before you go to anybody else, I went through every chain of command, and you're being fired.
Wow.
And I'm like, but we have an agreement. I'm like, I've actually literally turned down some other work and cleared my schedule because Valiant was trying to hire me also on an Exo Manowar thing. And I'm like, I've actually turned down work for this agreed. Like, we have paperwork. He's like, I know, but I went through all the channels and in the offices and I fired you. And I remember going to Dan. I remember going to Larry Gannum, and they're telling me to write specific emails to him. But in the end, Dan kind of said, like, you know, you have to understand, you know, like, if I, you know, I need the editors to do my books, you know, so it wasn't a lot Dan could do. And I'm like, the fuck is going on here? An editor at DC Comics basically told me it's because I had posted a picture of me in 2016 standing. I took a selfie with a Trump bus and had posted online. And it's like, wow, you know. And what it was, he had spoke, I think, in Charlotte. And it was at my local Walmart, and there was a KFC. And that was fucking Trump sitting outside KFC eating fucking chicken in a bus. I was like, I gotta take a picture of this. And I never would have thought, you know, me showing support for Donald Trump would mean that years later I would be fired, and not just fired, but made sure everybody in the DC Comics office knew I was not to be hired again.
Yeah.
And that fucking ruined me, because all it took was that happening at DC Comics, and all of a sudden Marvel doesn't want to fuck with me.
Yeah.